Florida continues to blow minds in the real estate industry as it refuses to change on price. Investors and buyers living in the state and moving to it are absolutely frustrated as prices continue to defy the odds. But will that continue? And particularly, we're going to talk about Naples, Florida. One of the most requested updates I get on this channel is for the southwest end of Florida. Naples, I somehow always miss it. But as I dove into the data, I found so many interesting things. Naples is so much different than anywhere in Florida, even Miami. If you're looking to buy, invest, or even sell a home that you currently own there's a lot of interesting market dynamics that are shifting there right now. Today, I'm gonna go over all the details of how the Naples market looks through the end of 2023. I'm gonna make some predictions about how it's going into 2024. And if you're looking to buy there, I'm gonna show you some soft spots in the market right now. I'm gonna show you the pitfalls to avoid. And if you're a seller, I'm gonna give you some very useful insights on how you can position your home to make sure you get the most from the market. My goal with this update is by the end of it, you're going to know more about Naples marketplace than most real estate professionals do. But as we smash into this market update, do me a favor and smash the like button. It would mean a ton to me to make sure that as many people can get this update as possible. Let's get started. All right, folks, let's jump into the narrative today. Right now, we're looking at the 30-year fixed. This is coming into 2023 from the summer of last year. Summer of 2022 is what you see on the left side of this graph. June of last year was the beginning of the end, the proverbial nail in the coffin when all housing started to tip, when it was this huge 2.5-year buying spree where marketplaces went up from 40 to 80% home price grinds to a halt. And honestly, here's why it happened. The interest rate you can see jumped from around 4.5% all the way up to 7% overnight. When it hit 7.3%, the entire marketplace froze up. And honestly, you had a lot of inventory start to pile up. You had sellers like, whoa, recalibrating because there's a little bit more competition. They weren't used to that. And home prices did come down. You can see average and median home prices throughout the nation, even in Florida, drop as low as 6-8%. We're now seeing year-over-year declines as I'm making this video in the areas of the West as high as 10 to 12% in places like Seattle and San Francisco. But you have the Southeast here, folks, particularly in Florida, holding strong with still high price gains. Year-over-year, there's parts of Florida still at 4 to 6% over last year, regardless of price. Now, take a look at this. This is the thing I want to show you really quick. We're going to move on. Is interest rates here kind of moved down from November into December, and that spurred buying back on. So a lot of buyers sitting on the sidelines, praying and hoping for prices to correct in Florida, where sadly, it's like you were almost getting the winning numbers on a lottery ticket. You're like, it's going to be there. It's going to be there. I'm going to get some price gain. I'm going to get a discount. I'm going to get a little cheaper. And boom, the marketplace saw a lower interest rate. It dropped in the lower half of the 6% range from the upper 7s, folks. And that alone caused everything to spark a renewed interest in the marketplace. Coming in the beginning of this year, prices went up in February, prices went up in March. And folks, we're now seeing some decline type things. We're seeing pending starting to fall, where people aren't putting homes under contract quite as fast in April. So there might be some pressure because as we started to reach the middle of this year, interest rates, as you can see right here from the graph, they started to push from these low 6% rates to up to over 7 again, and it starts to shock the market. Now, the 30-year right now is right at 6.88% as I'm shooting this video. I've noticed this year that anything over about 6.6, 6.7, 6.75, anything in the upper end of 6% on up into 7s really starts to give the market pause. You start to see a disruptive marketplace from the aspect of cost to borrow being so high that it positions the buyer and they just step away. But how much will that affect a marketplace like Naples? Naples has a record number of cash buying activity. I have never seen anything like it in the state of Florida. I watch this market closely. You all know that. But I have got some crazy data to show you, and it is going to have a major impact on any potential down cycling in the market. It's going to have an impact on any type of correction that hits Florida when it finally does. I'm going to tell you when to expect that too. We're going to watch another keystone marketplace in Miami. As I do this update for Naples, I'm going to make some comparisons, West Coast versus East Coast on the southern tip of Florida, because those markets are very similar. A lot of affluent people live in both of those markets. You have a very high income related to the percentage of income that most of Florida makes. Those markets have more. But look at this headline, folks. This is very important to put in this particular update as we jump into Naples. Investor home purchases fell to a record 49% year over year in the first quarter. Folks, we had 49% fewer homes purchased by investors in 2023 than they did a year earlier. It was around 41,000 homes sold nationwide. Look at this. When we refer to a record, the record dates back. This is the fewest amount of investors buying going back to the first quarter of the year 2000. This data is subject to revision. But here's the deal, folks. And I believe many of you are asking yourselves, how do they know if it's investors? Is it all these cash purchases? I think what they end up doing is they measure the amount of people buying homes and putting a separate mailing address to somewhere else when they close. So essentially, like if they go in and you can see all the closings in the first quarter, you purchased 123 Main Street, but your delivery address is 123 Wall Street, New York City. So they know, okay, that's an investor because it's not actually a closed, that's not matching mailing address with the actual house. So the reality is when you have a 49% drop, investors are leaving the marketplace. What does that tell us, folks? That tells us there's going to be a lower demand in the market. There's going to be less competition. That means if you have a house to sell that is in rough shape, then you're not going to have the high fight on that house from people who have the ability to see through those issues to fix them. You got fewer flippers in the marketplace. That's what's, this is a sign of the flippers are gone. The cash flow buyers are starting to pull back. And why is that? Because it's so expensive to buy a home in terms of financing costs being, 8-9% or more for an investor to try and actually rent it out for cash flow in the face of the marketplace that we're in. But as I said that before, how much will that affect a marketplace like Naples? The other thing I want to point out, folks, listen to this. 49% of investors doesn't represent all cash, okay? I would say most investors, we believe, are cash buyers, right? Quintessentially, it's kind of synonymous. You got to think of them as having high cash. They're not leveraging a ton all the time, okay? I think that's probably been historically different 2 years ago when the baseline interest rate was 2.5 or 3.5%. Investors were borrowing like crazy. But here's the difference. Borrowing costs are extraordinarily high. So even for companies, these Wall Street firms, the borrowing cost just for them to get large sums of money and then try to make a profit is untenable, okay? So that money is not being activated in the market. The biggest thing is they haven't pulled it out of the market yet. We'll be curious to see if that happens. But let's dive into the summation of this market. Let's look at Naples. Now, one of the most interesting tools I like to watch is this marketplace tool called How Money Walks. This actually shows how money is moving in and out. Demographically, is an area getting more money or is it getting less money than the other marketplaces around it? Now, is more revenue coming into the county than is leaving the county? And then where is it coming from? So where's the highest? And again, this is measuring IRS data. So this is actually measuring taxpayer movement because then you can see, okay, where are the earners going? So let's take a look at Collier County. This is the most recent data I have of wealth migration. Now, coming into the area of Collier County, which is the Naples area, Cook County takes number one, okay? It's no surprise there. Chicago, Lake County, Illinois, also northern part of the Chicago metro area, also the top two movers. And it's funny because that's the same for Tampa. Tampa's highest inbound migration is coming from Chicago, which isn't true of, for instance, Orlando, which isn't far from Tampa. But Chicagoans love the West Coast. I don't know what it is. They told a friend and their friends told a friend, and then they're all here. You have Hennepin County, Minnesota, which is Minneapolis area. You have Fairfield County, Connecticut, and you have Oakland County, Michigan, which is northwest Detroit, if I'm not mistaken, on Oakland County. Michiganders can correct me in the comments. Here we go. Where does the wealth go to? This is an interesting thing. This is very similar to Miami, folks. Whenever you start to have this out of county money coming into the city or in the state or in the county that you live, a lot of those locals leave. So where is money leaving? Well, the money's not going back to Chicago. It's going to other parts of Florida. So people are moving, for instance, to Sumter and Marion County, which to me, that just tells me they're moving into the country. I mean, Sumter and Marion County is kind of rural. Charlotte County, Sarasota County, which is north, just under Tampa area. And you have Lake County, Florida, which is another rural area. This is people saying, this is getting too crowded and I'm out of here. That is the MO right now of the makeup. And this is super important because when you start to see, I'm going to show you again the cash inbound data for cash closings. Naples has the highest cash closings. 7 out of 10 closings in the Naples metro area is cash, all cash. No mortgage. All right, let's take a look at market health. And I'm going to, again, compare the market health of Naples with Miami. So take a look at this. This is what's called the price to earnings. It's the potential of a crash for the marketplace because it takes, for instance, we're gonna compare Miami and Naples as we go through this update. It kind of showcases how much does the annual earnings of a single worker make versus the typical value of a home. It compares some census or Bureau of Labor statistical data combined with Zillow's averages for housing in these particular areas. And it shows us, hey, look, what is the typical average? Okay. So in Miami, for instance, the typical typical ratio for the area is a 5.8x percentage of personal income versus the cost of housing. You can see right now it's a 9x PE ratio for this area. Again, according to the graph, it shows a potential for crash or course adjustment needed of negative 35% for home prices to find the symbiosis of where the average has been. Let's take a look at the same graph here for Naples. You got home price to earnings ratios in Naples. The typical is already high. So it's a 7.8% average. You can see that even through 2015 on to 2021, they're held a long-standing elevated number here, even above the average line. Let's take a look here at Naples. You can see here there was an 11.1x number here before the market shifted last time. So 11.1 was the price to earnings combination. Annual earnings at that time was $38,700. The typical home value was $430,000. You can see it dropped all the way down to 5.9. It found an equilibrium before the pandemic of, 7.8 to 8. Now you can see, folks, there's probably a lot of wealth here, and it's probably very tough for locals to afford it. I think that can be said of anywhere, but it's already very elevated. So like you can see the average, when the average is right here in the middle is at 7.8, that is a big number on the average graph, just to kind of set, hey, look, this is kind of our standard for this area. So when it's at 7.8, it is high. It's 10.9. It's knocking on the door of where it was the last time the market down cycled. So that's an interesting thing to watch. It's 26.1% off of the norm. So we'll have to see. It's not as elevated on just a typical comparison basis to where Miami is. Miami is a nonstop vertical leap in price, but Naples is obviously up there as well. It's very, very expensive for the local market. The next graph we're going to look at is buy versus rent calculator. Again, this is a very important, crucial indicator for locals because theoretically in history, it's cheaper to buy than it is to rent. Buying is the red line. Renting is this kind of turquoise sea green line in the middle here. And ultimately, we need buying to remain a discount to renting to make an incentive for people to enter the housing market. That's kind of how this whole thing works. You can see the lines crossed early last year, particularly in this case, Miami crossed in the September, is kind of the fall season. But most marketplaces, they crossed a little bit earlier as interest rates started to climb, and it still resides a good bit higher. But very comparable, it's $2,800 average payment. This is kind of takes in consideration average home price, cost of borrowing as it is in the marketplace right now, factors all those things, and here you go. Here's the payment. Look at Naples, folks. Look how wide the gap is between buying and renting. It's a 10% savings to rent in this market. Now you can see all the way back here in history, going back to 2015, that the lines were pretty close together. You can see as we went into the pandemic season that the rents jumped from around $1,900 a month. Absolutely off the charts, $3,700. This is buying rather. So buying cost went from $1,900 a month to over $3,700 a month. Renting was already, again, around $2,200 a month. Now it is almost $1,000 higher. Rents around the country are still escalating. Again, the Federal Reserve is, as we know, raising interest rates to try to get a handle on inflation, but they have not gotten a handle on rental at all. The rental market shelter cost is what we call it in the core inflation numbers. You can see it's off the charts. If rents start to come down, you're going to see a downward effect on housing. You're going to probably see investors come back in the marketplace. One of the reasons why investors aren't in the market is this line right here. If it costs this much for an investor to buy a house and the investor is going to rent it out for this, it doesn't add up. So investors leave the market. Take a look at building permits, folks. This is very, very important. We're going to start with Naples on the building permit side. This is a leading indicator for how much inventory is coming into the market in Naples. You can see that since last year, or actually since the end of December of 2021, we had a peak where total permits for building was at 6,370 units. Today, total permits are 5,126 permits total. You have single family, look, trending down. And by the way, if you look in history, folks, back in 2002, Naples had a spike in their build. So 2002, you saw a huge run up in investment for new construction, for multifamily. The blue line, by the way, is condos and multi-units, building, apartments, anything that's, I think, plus 5 units is the blue line. But you can see right here that the single family construction permits hit 4,200 back in 2002, and it hit it again right here. A lot of marketplace. I'll show you Miami real quick. Miami, I do not believe hit the peak in total permits. You can see the peak of 2002 was way up here. It was about good 35% behind that in 2021, considering all permits. Multifamily and condos in Naples, way down. So look at this. You didn't have near the construction path in the multifamily, the 5+ units and large apartment complex, things of that nature. Did not build the same rate as you saw in the single family sector, which really single family paced the previous. Look at Miami. So Miami had a massive amount of activity back in 2005. Okay, so their peak was hit a little bit later. However, if you look back here, their peak in single family was 2004. Their peak in multifamily was 2005. Look at the ratio of single family this cycle. Single family is not being built in Miami as a comparison to its history. You have multi and condos, obviously, density is the build there, going up in a much higher number. So this is where all the cycle through is going through. So people are buying in high density, buying in towers, things of that nature. All right, let's jump into some demographic data that I think is gonna be very interesting for you to see. Here's the median household income in Naples, Florida. It is $79,320. This is 23% higher than the state average. And I'm gonna show you some rapid fire demographic research here on the area of Naples, kind of show you how that lays on with the rest of Florida. Right here, you have the median household income close to $80,000, folks. At $79,320 annual household, that is 23% higher than the state of Florida. State of Florida is around 64,000. And I believe Naples is probably the highest earning city, or metropolitan area, I should say, for the data that we have. Again, all this is provided by the census. Again, information comes from the census here. Median age in Naples is 51.5. You can see since 2006, this number has been creeping up. Very popular with the older demographic. And again, even though you think of Florida as a statistically kind of a retirement location, definitely is the case. But the state of Florida actually has an average age of 42. So Naples not only makes more money, it's not a surprise that obviously the age bracket is a little older as well. Now check out the home ownership rate in Naples, even though it looks like it's on the decline. And honestly, the marketplace across the US is on a decline. You can look at the state of Florida, it's very similar to this as well. But 73% is kind of where it currently hovers according to the US Census. This is a much higher rate of home ownership than even throughout the state of Florida. State of Florida is actually around 65 to 67%. So this is actually about 4 or 5% higher than the actual state average. Most people own homes in this particular area. So this is an important graph I like to watch. This actually showcases how tight a marketplace is for the locals. This is actually very concerning because I will tell you that the migration for Naples looks kind of flat. Now, I wonder anytime I see that kind of data in the face of Florida, because Florida has a lot of inbound traffic, a lot of we've had record migration in Florida the last 2 or 3 years. And I have to believe some of that trickles into Naples, but Naples is elevated in terms of migration. I'll show that to you here in a second. But then look at this, folks, because my concern is once these Chicagoans and these Connecticutans and all these Michiganders and all these people stop moving here, which is bound to happen. Whenever you see market recessions, things of that nature, it cycles down the market. I have a feeling you are going to see the market really kind of shift towards what can locals afford. That will have a problematic effect. So take a look at this. This shows right now, look how crazy this marketplace is. You had April of 2021, the marketplace jumped the shark, where the annual house payment here is so high, meaning to finance the current sale price, it's now 55.9%. Oddly, folks, look where it's at. Look where it's at in relation to the last time the market took a huge nosedive. It's at 55.9%, folks, which is higher than the state of Florida average by a long shot. It's probably 30% higher. I think the state of Florida is around 41%, 42%, which is really high. I mean, that is a big chunk of the person's normal income to buy a house. I think that's what's gonna slow migration down, is the amount of people who can even come here from somewhere else and it make financial sense for them is shifting quite a bit. All right, everybody, this is the entire Naples metro area, pulling this data out of the back of the Florida Association of Realtors. This is the good data right here, folks. This is the data that you cannot get anywhere. This is members only access, cool websites that you actually have free access to right now, decent data. They're not as good. Look how far back I'm going. Go back to January of 2008. All right, folks, look at the interesting data points we have right here. Folks, you can see that historically, like clockwork, you have the closed sales in this area flirting with the 400 mark. Okay, so it hovers and kind of drops into the just below 400 sales a month for a season, and then it jumps above it, going almost to 550 sales, something like that. You can see that back in 2020, when the pandemic kind of started to get underway and the Fed started pushing out a ton of cash in the market, look how high the volume spiked. It stayed far away from the 400 line. It was up 500 to 700 units at a historic amount of real estate, actually almost 900 units sold April of 2021. But you had this start to change coming into 2022, and it dropped below 500 units, and then it dropped below 400 units, and then it dropped below 300 units. So this was very, very low sales kind of coming into 2023. So Naples actually really saw a stall out at the end of 2023. Now let me show you the flip side of this. This is the actual active inventory response. So a second ago, I was showing you closed sales, which is very, very important, right? Because if you're gonna have a market crash, if you're gonna see the market slow down, what has to happen? Inventory has to really climb, has to get really out of hand. At the same time, you're gonna have sales plummet. You're gonna have people just stop buying houses. Well, look what happened. So through 2022, just like every other market, this marketplace hovered around 7,000 units. If you look at this 5-year average, the marketplace really absorbed 7,000 homes at a time, okay? And remember, I just told you 500 homes on the average we're selling per month. So if you're carrying around 7,000 homes, it would take what? I don't know, that's a lot of inventory, to be honest. If you're selling 500 homes a month and you have 7,000 to sell, if you look at this marketplace, for the longest time, it was running around 7,000 units and selling around 500 units a month. Let me focus on the current. I'm gonna zoom in on this really quick so you can see the reality. This is closed sales. You can see here in July of 2022, the show is over. It went overnight from 600 units to down to like 300 units. So sales fell by like 50% coming out of the summer of last year. More than likely, that caused inventory to increase, right? Because buyers are like, I'm out, I'm not doing anything. And this stayed below the 400 line all the way to February. So even as inventory started to come back, you had more homes to choose from, particularly from November months. So these October, November is 301 sales. December was 351 sales. These are obviously a little bit anemic by the standards of the last 2 to 3 years. Now, the other thing I want to point out is interest rates dipped here. So interest rates dipped in December, and it actually brought some sell-off back in the state of Florida. But in this particular market, you are going to be blown away when you see this next statistic. Folks, take a look at this. This is an astounding graph. This right here is the Naples metro area percentage of all closed sales that sell all cash. Now, I'm considering all market segments right here, folks. This is close to 70%, 66% of all sales. That's flipped on its head. Most of the state of Florida and most of the rest of the country, if you look at any marketplace, usually you have 2/3 of the marketplace is financed. You know, it's conventional financing, FHA, maybe 1/3 of it is cash. And then cash involvement usually really kind of dictates a very small amount of the market, right? So if you have a marketplace where most of people are using loans to buy, then interest rates affect that market. If you have a marketplace where most people are not borrowing the money, then cash buyer activity affects that marketplace and interest rates don't matter as much. Is the case here in Naples, which is funny because interest rates did drop in November and sales stayed low. Why? Because cash buyers felt uneasy about the market. So if cash buyers in this particular marketplace are excited and feel confident in the market, they're going to come and spend the money. And it's not going to affect much whatever interest rates do. So you can see right here, look at this, folks. Coming into April of 2023, you had the percentage of cash closings come back up. Look where it was towards the end of last year, and particularly in 2021. You had a big season where cash activity fell below 60%, and with it, the actual volume closed sales was down because the cash buyers had stepped away, and this marketplace is highly dependent on cash buyers. That being said, folks, it is going to be an interesting future because we know where the cash is coming from. A high percentage of this cash seems to be migrating migrating in, and particularly from outside the state. So if this place becomes less appealing to the outside market and migration shifts, that could have a big impact, particularly on Naples. All right, folks, once again, I want to take a look at closed sales one more time and flip that and show you the health of this market and what's called factoring months of supply, okay? How long does it take for Naples to sell everything off if there were no more listings in the market? That is the true measure of a market's health. Now, I've thrown back in, folks, all activity type, all types of houses, including condos, townhomes, single family, probably manufactured homes as well. But the point I want to make is a second ago, and I was showing you averages around 400, that was single family data. This right here is all points of data. You can see that taking out and including, by the way, in this particular account, this is how many closings happen, including townhomes and condos. You can see through the end of last year, if you throw in the condos, towns, it jumps the numbers by a couple hundred per month. So you have 500, 600, 700 on the average. You can see it's spiked here up to 2,000 sales, including all property types. And then you can see it was, kind of hovering around 1,000 units for a long time. 800 to 1,000 is like the common range here for this marketplace. You can see it drop down to 600, 700 and stayed in that range for quite a while. Now it sprung back to 1,000 units, which kind of normal market health here. So let's consider this. We have seen markets where they're seeing 650 units for about 5 months straight. And then you have a marketplace now where they're selling around 1,000 units. And I want to check that out versus active inventory. So we're going to flip to active available supply of all types of homes. Wow, look at this, folks. Interesting to see the history of this market. Look over here. This was January of 2008 when the market absolutely saw a big price correction. Price correction in this market meant over 15,000 homes in inventory just in the Naples metro area. It bottomed, by the way, here at 1,500 homes, 1,300, somewhere in there. But look what happened, folks. You had this coming out of the March. Actually, it was early of last year when the cash buyers were already like, whoa, we're stepping back. And you saw inventory starting to pick up. It stuttered through the summer of last year because this was probably buying season. So it flattened and then it just started climbing through the fall. Be interesting to see, folks. Will the cash buyers in the fall season this year get kind of panic struck, kind of get nervous? Does recession take effect? Does interest rates climb higher and stifle the local buying public who's borrowing money? How will all this pan out in Naples? Because, ultimately right now, folks, there's a huge portion of this marketplace that's held up by flat out cash purchasing. And I got to tell you, if we go further in recession, you're going to see cash tighten up. So you're going to see less capital coming, because here's the deal. If we see recession, then the folks coming from Michigan, the folks coming from Connecticut, all those markets, they lock up too. They don't get their cash out. Their equity doesn't come to Florida. Migration slows down, and that's going to have, again, some effects here. But look at this, folks, look, April, all active inventory, which was a high. I think the month before that was even higher, 3,600 homes. And we're selling average of 1,000 per month, folks. So if there's 1,000 per month, you're around 3,000 units. You only have 3 months supply. It's still in seller control. Naples is still arguably incredibly hot, no matter what, because here's the deal. It's easy for people to write stories because last year, March, was how many homes on the market? 1,600. Now it's double that. So they're going to say inventory is up 100%. That doesn't mean anything. The inventory right now is being absorbed at 1,000 units a month. Now, if you see 36 homes on the market and they're only absorbing 500 homes a month, that's the thing, is that buying demand can disrupt and slow the market. Okay. So if the buyers pull back and you're not selling 1,000 homes a month in Naples anymore, and it goes down to 500 or 600 homes, 600 homes against 3,600 homes on the market becomes a 6-month time frame of inventory, which now shifts more towards what's called a balanced market. Buyers are going to be taking control a little bit more. Sellers will have to discount in order to get out. So here we go. Take a look at this, folks. This is pending supply. This is a leading indicator for how many homes will sell in Naples. As you can see right here, it looks like it's starting to soften. It's on a softening trend. Even though sales have been up the last couple months, it looks like it might have hit its peak in March. We'll have to see because it slowed down in April. April pending was down. That was a national headline. All homes everywhere slowed down in April. And honestly, I think it's because of affordability. Interest rates really affect the rest of the market, but here, not the case so much. But you can see, look, pendings were just trending down, 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 down. And the bottom for Naples was December. It fired back up this year. And obviously with it, a bunch of sell through. And that's where the market is right now. All right, folks, new listings in the area. You can see over here, not setting any records, but it's not terribly far off the graph because obviously it hovers right around 1,500 units. But I will say that this April represents a 27% change down the negative. So there's almost a third less listings hitting the market in April versus last year. 2 months back, as the time of shooting this video, was down 18%. Look, it was actually started the year up. So January and February of 2023, listings were up, but they're obviously way down after that. All right, folks, sellers are still excited here to have a very reasonable time frame to sell. You can see history shows median time frame to be on market around 130 days. Something like that's a longer time frame. It looks like Naples was always a little bit of a slower marketplace. This is much faster than history shows. You had the marketplace bottom out around 55 days back in 2022. So it was, 50 some odd days on the market there was kind of the time frame to actually sell. You can see now that that's up quite a bit, 40% or so. But still, even though it is 40% sounds like a lot, yes, it's trending higher, but it's definitely historically low. It's even low pre-pandemic comparison. All right, folks, let me show you some really cool zip code analysis. We're gonna go through, I'm gonna start by showing you where price growth is still high year over year, where it's kind of slowing down. You can see we are now on the north side, just underneath Bonita Springs. 34120, it's up 4.8%. That's a big number, folks. This area is still growing pretty rapidly. Same thing over here with 110, 5.9% up, 4.4 up, down through the heart here of 34109, 6.2%. Pelican Bay, 6.4% up. Look at this, 103, still 8.5%. Very hot in terms of year over year growth. You can see still through the heart here, 34105, 6.3% up. Golden Gate area, 34116 is just break even, practically at 2.2%. 117's at 1.9%. Down south, Port Royal, 5.8%. Growth, 5.9, still very high, 7.9% in 34112. 113 is 6.7%. Marco Island slowing down a little bit, even practically at 2.2%. And then you have 34140, probably a smaller market, but much hotter than Marco greater area at 8.8%. And then again, we weave down south here, 6.2% here on the southern edge. Now, heading back up north again, let's take a look at where most of the inventory is leaping on a year-over-year basis. Again, you're taking an account that last year you had incredibly low numbers. So seeing an area that just doubled, 100% growth is not a very big number. So keep that in mind. When you've got historically low inventory, 100% jump is nothing interesting. 200 and 300% is starting to see a little bit more of a loosening up. You got some marketplaces here that look like that. So let's look at the north here. You've got 34120, 79.6% up, not very high. 119's up 86.8%. 110's 141%. Pelican Bay 274%, so decent amount. Not uncommon. We get a little bit more. This is probably more expensive real estate here on the coastline. There tends to be a little bit more inventory in these areas anyways. It doesn't sell super fast. So you tend to see higher numbers here, but 207% is quite a difference. 34105 has got 101%. 102 has got 109% growth over last year. 116 is actually contracted, is less inventory than last year. Probably, I guess, maybe a smaller pocket of real estate. I don't know this area super well. 34117's up 18%, which is nothing. 34112, 116%. 113's 109%. Look at Marco Island. It's only up 109%, which was enough to flatten the marketplace there at an even 2% price growth. And up here in 34140, still remarkably hot, has 150% inventory growth. Still, I think that marketplace was almost up 9%. And at 34114 is up 131%. Let's take a look at price reduction data. So again, price reduction data shows how many sellers as a percentage of active listings there have cut their price in order to sell. Typically, you need to see a number higher than 30% for there to be kind of a sense that people are maybe getting some, some anxious sellers. Also could be the first wave of sellers just come to Jesus moment. Oh, I've asked way too much and now I need to price correct in order to get out of here. 34120, 21% up. 34110 is 27%. So 1 out of 4 listings there seeing price reduction. Same with 34119. 108's at 25%. 34103 pushing 30% along with 105, 24% 116, 104 17%. These are very small numbers. 22% is negligible. 3413, again, these 20 percenters are probably like historic norms. It's probably nothing excessive. Marco Island, which again I saw was kind of flat in price growth, 25%, so 1 out of 4 homes there. Look, a full 0% price reduction. The good old 34140, and then 114 is seeing 24.6% price reduction data there, folks. Now, one last graph I like to watch called inventory as a percentage of houses shows how many homes are actively being marketed for sale in relation to how many total homes there are. So I would say a good rule of thumb is 1.6, 1.8% of listings hitting the market in a given area, like meaning that many homes, 1.6, 1.7% of homes actively marketed. It's kind of like a healthy market. When it goes much, much higher, that's a sign that there's a high percentage of homes on the market. I will also add the caveat, as you look here on the coastal side, you will see higher percentages, very common, okay? So there's historically higher inventory on the coast. Again, it's higher purchase price, it takes longer to sell, it's got a lower buyer pool, all that kind of thing leads to those being a little bit higher all along the West Coast, 4 or 5%, same thing in Tampa, all these other areas. But look at this, one of the top end ones, 34120, 2.1% of all homes there on the market. Again, down through the middle, you see 1.6 ones. These are all very low. Look, coastal areas going up. This is probably significantly higher than last year. 34102's got 4% of all homes there on the market, 2.7. These aren't very high numbers. 1.7, Marco Islands 2.6, which again is probably in keeping with historic norms. And then 34140, 2.9%, almost 3% of all the listings there, of all homes there are actually listed for sale. And then in 114, you've got 1.9%. All right, folks, that's the update for now. That's your deep dive for Naples. But let's continue the conversation in the comments below. If you live in Naples, what do you see going on right now, and what do you believe the future of this marketplace is going to be? If you're jumping into the channel and just getting an idea of Naples and you want information on other marketplaces, drop in the comments the metro area that you want me to cover on my next video, and you just might see it on this channel. On a side note, you may have heard that insurance in Florida is a huge debacle right now. On every video I get, most people are asking for an update of how that looks. I'm dropping 2 links in the description below. Make sure you check those out if you have any questions or are concerned on why you're hearing stories such as I heard yesterday of a friend of mine whose insurance went from $3,000 to $4,000 a year to $14,000 for the year we are in. Overnight change. If you're curious about how that will impact your ownership in Florida, potential future ownership in Florida, check out those videos below. I think you'll find them very helpful. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.